All righty. We're live.
What's up, people? How are you doing?
All right, today we're going to talk about how life... Oh, come on. Now the dog's going to start barking. We're talking about life cycles, right? And that everything in life that you do is cyclical, right? And this is a conversation I was having a client with on Monday. And it was kind of just like a phase that I think she's going through personally with, like, you know, motivation and kind of where her diet was. And we were talking a lot about, like, you know, things have seasons. And it kind of just got me down this rabbit hole. I was like driving home Monday night and I was thinking about this. I was like, you know what? I feel like this is good to share the wealth a little bit with the listeners and people that obviously are following along on any of the stuff that we provide for you guys. But I like to think about things really in a very kind of spiritual, holistic way, how everything has a cycle, right? Like the world spins a full circle every 24 hours. The moon goes around us every month or so, right? We do a full trip around the moon, that there's seasons every single year. You know, walking the dog, it's like the cycle of trees having blooming in the spring and then falling off in the fall and winter. You know, and just understanding that every single thing we do in life lines up with nature in so many different ways. And when you pay attention to nature, I feel like it, and I'll just speak from just personal experience here, and this is kind of the conversation I was having with her. It was like, I feel like it gives me more confidence in the process and understanding that, you know, nothing really is going to last forever. So enjoy what you have while you have it. But that also can go both directions, right? Like sometimes when we're in a bad place, we feel like it's just never going to end, right? And I feel like getting into that mental trap of just that downward spiral that'll bring you into is dangerous, right? But I also, you know, I look at everything. This is where the whole pursuit of balance thing obviously always comes into play for me. And this is why I use the quote so much, is like life is about the pursuit of balance, right? And understanding that, you know, most of us like to think about things very binary, that it's either this or it's that, and, you know, looking at things on the polar end of each other versus like, yeah, you can have both, and you also can be somewhere in the middle. And just like I was talking to my client this morning, Cindy, about, it's like it's a forever pursuit, right? And the reason why I called it the pursuit of balance, not like just balance, is because it's not something that necessarily that you ever acquire. It's something that's very, very dynamic, right? So when you think about things being very cyclical, understand that when, you know, and there's so much context per usual to everything that we talk about inside of these subjects. But when you think about like your motivation, especially, and this is obviously where the conversation happened on Monday with me, is like motivation is something that is very, very cyclical. Just like so many other things in life. When you have motivation, you really, really want to run with what you have, right? Because the cool thing about motivation is this kind of additional life force and energy that we have towards any goal, right? Like, and I'm obviously just going to, you know, once again, talk about nutrition, diet, training, health as always. When we think about having motivation towards our goals of wanting to eat cleaner or wanting to take care of our body or want to improve our mental state or sleep better, the moments and the periods in life where you actually have a lot of motivation to use, it's really, really, really important to make sure that you hit the ground running, to build as much foundation and to build as much momentum as you can, and to build as many good habits as you can so you can stack them against yourselves, because winter is coming eventually, right? When I think about winter in the term of this conversation, you know, obviously if we were to think about it in its very true form, winter happens every year for us, right? When you think about this in, you know, relationships or motivation or other things that we talk about in life, winter is not always planned. You know, sometimes winter just shows up, right? Some of the things, you know, we can look at them as being kind of on a little bit more of a timeline, right? Like when you think about the economy and finances, that like, okay, we have a recession every 8 to 12 years, which is pretty straightforward for any economist or someone that's really want to pay attention to their finances or be involved with the recession or be prepared for a recession, that once we get towards that timeline of inside the 8 to 12, 8 to 15, whatever it is, that we should expect some of that stuff to come. And I think so many times in life, we actually choose not to think about life the same way with the other things that we deal with, that we think that, oh, I'm rich and I'm going to be rich forever, or I have motivation now and I'm going to have motivation forever, or I'm eating clean now so I can eat clean forever. And that's not true, right? We have to think about it in the same way that we think about the recession example, the same way we think about seasons per year, the same way we think about the life cycle of the planet we live on. Everything has a timeline and a cycle, and some of them can be very, very consistent, and some of them have a window, right? And there's going to be a lot of variability to that. So the one thing that we need to remember is when you're in a bad cycle, you're in a downturn of any sort, you're in winter. I'm going to give you guys all these little weird analogies that you can use. It's not going to last forever, right? And as much as it sucks in the position that you could be currently with very, very low motivation, not being accountable, not having a plan, not having the support system, you need to remember that that will not last forever, right? And it's the same conversation that I had with so many people in the beginning of the pandemic, and even myself a lot, is when I was in the pandemic in the beginning of it, when I got to like month 2, I started to feel that stress of like, oh shit, like, how long is this actually going to last? I emailed my landlord saying 2 weeks I'll be back in office, but so I think there's it's normal for us to have that fear of the end, kind of like we don't really know when it's going to turn around. We don't know when things are going to get better. We don't need, and there's some of that we can control and there's some of that we can't control. So I really, really want to preach for those that are in this position right now, for the same way that I was telling my client on Monday, that's not going to last forever. So instead of letting your body and yourself get really, really worked up and stressed about something that you're currently in a state of, remember that will pass, just like a season will pass, just like everything else that I'm talking about, right? So remember that those things are very, very cyclical. So doing your best to provide yourself with the resources and things that you need to be able to push out of these cycles and out of these downturns, because at the end of the day, as we always say, let's focus on the things that we do actually have control of, and let's not focus on the things that we do not have control of. When you choose to focus on the things you do not have control of, you are naturally going to become very, very stressed out because you are focusing on something that you cannot change, right? So when we focus on the things that we can control, you put yourself in a position of power. You put yourself in a position of like, okay, well, what are the current things that I could do right now to actually get the ball rolling and get this thing moving forward, right? I'll give you an example with even some things that I think we naturally just do to ourselves. I personally, I was talking to my girlfriend about this actually last week, and it's like, imagine if instead of the year had, when we think about a week, we think about the weekend, right? And who knows, like, I don't know. Maybe some of you guys actually listen to this, like how the weeks were created, but how we landed on a weekend and how we landed on a 5-day work cycle, and obviously super subjective once again. There's something mentally about being in a Saturday that just feels different, right? And it's just another day, right? Like there's nothing different about a Saturday from a Friday besides, oh, well, I'm not working, I'm on the weekends, I get to see family and friends, I get to see a hobby. And this is why I feel like there's so much wrong with that very kind of traditional, rat race style of living that we live in, where so many people live in. Like, that's why I think it's important to, find something that you enjoy with your work and make sure you have really strong, healthy relationships so you can be happy with the people you spend time with at work and at home and, your friends and all that good stuff, right? So when you think about the Saturday style of living, that mindset that it provides, it's kind of just more relaxing. And it's hard for me, and I'll speak from my own shoes, for me to be really proactive and motivated towards moving the ball forward in certain areas. Like, I'm like, I don't really want to work on the weekends. On Sundays, I don't even like talking about fitness to people. I don't even work out sometimes, those days, those seasons, those part of the years happen. And December for me has always felt like that. It's felt like that day of the week, but it's a whole month, right? When I get to Halloween, I think November, it starts to turn down a little bit. The weather gets colder. I'm getting into the holidays. Some clients are traveling more. I'm traveling more. When I get into December, that same, thing is just even stronger, and I'm just like less motivated to do more and more. It's a week before Christmas, and I haven't started Christmas shopping yet. I'm going on vacation for 6 days tonight. So those times, like, I think sometimes we just mentally automatically put ourselves into that day, when in reality, December is no different than July, besides maybe the weather being warmer and that having something to do with motivation. But I think we make this stuff up in our heads to go, you know what, it's fine, I'm in a stage, I'm just going to let this pass. But understanding that yes, it is cyclical, like you will get out of that stage as time moves on, but there is so much that you can take control back on, right? There is so much that you can do to build back that motivation. And I'm going to tell you right now, from someone that really doesn't have a lot of motivation to be proactive with work right now, and end of the year planning and all the stuff that I need to do before the year, and this is why I procrastinate, unfortunately, so much. I'll get it done, but I don't have that internal desire as much anymore. But instead of me really getting stressed out about the fact that I don't have a lot of motivation, I've understood it by just taking time to reflect and understanding that every single year when I get to this time, I kind of feel like this. So I think it's really important too to really pay attention, to have the ability to take time to reflect on, these cycles, right? Both up and down. When you have downturns in motivation, you have up, or whatever the thing that we're talking about is. It's not just motivation. It could be when you're working a lot or not working a lot, or your relationship's good, your relationship's not good, your job's good, your job's not good. Like, there will be times of both up and down for both everything in life. So that's always one thing to understand, is a lot of stuff that we tend to put on ourselves is actually just projected from ourselves, because you are putting yourself into that state of mind, when in reality you actually do have control to change whatever the hell you want. You could make Saturday the most productive day of the week, but you choose to walk into Saturday thinking it's a weekend, thinking it's a day of not working, thinking it's a day of relaxing. So naturally, subconsciously, your body goes into the same way. And no shit, it's harder to motivate yourself on Saturday. And no shit, it's harder to motivate yourself at the end of the year in December. So when you look at all things in life, take time on really the ability to reflect on, when I do have downturns, what's happened in the past. Has it always passed? If yes, cool. And if no, are you still alive? Cool. Like, at the end of the day, it's never going to kill you. So don't let those downturns just continually spiral down. Learn to have a point of acceptance for where you're at, and just appreciate that process that happens, because everything that we do is very cyclical. But that conversation happens the same way in the opposite direction, right? When things are good, it's easy for us to feel good, right? I like to think about this example when I think about athletes, right? Athletes getting paid millions and millions of dollars every single year to be good at what they do, and then they retire, and they just think, oh, I'm going to keep making millions and millions of dollars, and so many athletes go broke doing that. And the reason why is they just forget that there's cycles to what we do. There might be a cycle for an athlete to make a lot of money for a decade, but then they remember, oh, fuck, I still got, another 50 years of my life or 40 years of my life. Like, I need to plan for the downturn, plan for the adjustments. So when we are good, learn to appreciate the time that you are good. But I always like to say it this way. It's nice to be prepared for plan B, but I never think about plan B, right? I heard a quote the other day from one of Kobe's teammates. I forget who it was. And it was like the good old quote that, like, don't put all eggs in the baskets. A lot of, like, investors, a lot of people like to say, don't put all your eggs in one basket. Have some energy and some resources allocated to plan B. I personally don't have a plan B. I've stuck to the same plan since I've been a teenager and what the hell I wanted to do with my life. I was like, I personally just wanted to create a life that I had initially planned from the start, and I haven't deviated from it. There's obviously adjustments that we make along the roads, but I never had plan B as even a thought, because for me, it's like the idea of like being a serial entrepreneur. I'm like, I don't want to be that person that owns 7 businesses when I could just put all my energy into one business and make it really, really successful, or just like make it the best I can possibly be. It's like, I'm like everything else. Like, I'd rather have less, but higher quality, right? And just speaking for myself here, I know if some of you people might be listening to that, being like, hey, I want more. Cool. You can have whatever the hell you want in your life. But having a plan B, I think, takes energy away from plan A. So Kobe said, well, how about we just go get more eggs? And what I really think about when I hear that is, like, instead of putting eggs into different baskets, put all your eggs in one basket. And if it fails, just go get some more eggs. At the end of the day, like, it doesn't matter if you start over, right? It doesn't matter how good or bad things are. You can always start over from where you are, right? So when things are good, things are bad, you have to remember that things also have cycles. The cool thing is, as you take the time to reflect, as you take the time to adapt, as you take the time to learn, from the past and continually build on your present moment and into your future, you can really control the cycles a little bit more effectively, right? But at the end of the day, there might be certain cycles where, like, put it this way, you might be someone that's making more and more money from the time you were 20 years old to the time you die. That maybe didn't have a cycle. Maybe there was points of intensity where you were making a lot and you're making some, and it's like, or you have a lot of energy and you have some energy. Maybe it's not necessarily always going, when I say a cycle, that things are going backwards. things just might sometimes slow down, right? So just remember, no matter where you're at in life, I don't want to make this too long because it's going to sound repetitive, that when you're in a good place, appreciate the process for what you're doing, appreciate the time and the opportunity that you're provided, and really, really, really just live in the moment and be present in that moment and enjoy life and enjoy the ride that we are on, right? And when you're in a downturn and you're in a lull, remember that it's not going to be forever. It's the same way, like, hey, you maybe are not going to be successful at forever. So even though we want to work towards it and plan for that, like, we should always just be like, we're okay with it being whatever, right? Like, having the ability to live a life without needs and just wants is a very, very empowering position to be in, I think, personally. When you feel like you need to have something, when you expect something from yourself or other people's, you're putting a standard and you're putting a thing that when it doesn't happen, or if it doesn't happen, it wrecks you a little bit more, right? Versus being in this place of presence and this place of gratitude and this place of understanding that this is just how the process is and this is just how life is. Life has cycles, seasons in the year, in the day, in the world, and everything, right? So just remember that no matter what part of the cycle that you are in, enjoy the process, enjoy the ride. When you're on the high, enjoy it. When you're on the low, learn from it. And over time, you can start to really have more control of the cycle. But more importantly, I feel like you learn to have more appreciation for the cycle. When things get bad, I don't think necessarily they're the reason why they feel less intense is because you've already experienced it, right? The reason why you can control it better is because you've made it through a previous one. And if you happen to be someone that's maybe going through the first of something, the first loss, the first bankruptcy, the first breakup, the first time your body fat went up, I don't care, whatever the fuck it is, the first time you have something that negatively experienced, it's definitely the hardest time to experience it. But the cool thing is, I want you to remember that you need to learn to appreciate this moment, because that moment's going to give you more information than the upcycle will. When things are good, people don't learn. People don't learn when they talk. People don't learn when they win. People learn when they listen. People learn when they lose. People learn when they're at the bottom, because that's where you really have to go through a point of reflection personally and go fuck, what am I doing wrong? Or what am I missing? And understand that instead of putting blame on yourself, learn to appreciate both sides, right? And always be open-minded with the approach, right? Of what are you currently doing that you can control, and what are they doing, whatever the other thing is. What can I control? What can I fix? And as long as you keep your head on and you focus on those things and you learn to appreciate that, life will be easier, right? All right, guys. Well, I want to keep that one short. Hopefully, you guys take away something from that. If anybody needs to hear this, I think this is a great week for people to share this, honestly, because as much as always is going on in the world, there's been some hard shit that people have talked about, and I think it's just, it's one of those things that I think a lot of us just need to hear sometimes. And as I always say, people need to be reminded. They don't need to be taught. All right, guys. Well, have a great week. Have a great weekend, depending on when you're listening to this. I should be back next week for Friday, so I should see you guys in a week. But I know next week will be kind of crazy. But other than that, take care. See you guys.